What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. One host of the podcast, my name is Kyle Dabro, and in today's segment, we're going to go over some of the aspects of what we saw in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. We're going to specifically focus on the Miami Heat here. Unfortunately for them, they did lose Game 1 to the Denver Nuggets by the score of 104-93. Relatively speaking, Denver won this game quite comfortably. Miami did make a pretty solid push in the fourth quarter of Game 1, but the deficit was too much to overcome for Miami. And going into Game 2, there's definitely going to be some adjustments that Erik Spolestra and the coaching staff are going to make the Heat a more competitive team going into Game 2 of the NBA Finals. So, Kev, to kick this one to you, what do you think some of the adjustments that Miami needs to make as a team going into Game 2?
Well, I mean, for starters, I think Erik Spolestra misread the situation. The LA Lakers lost in 4 games due to the fact that they were not making adjustments in their lineup. Miami went out and started 3 guards in Max Strus, Caleb Martin, and of course Gabe Vincent. To which you counter that with Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, Nikola Jokic, to which all tower over those guards. It almost becomes impossible because there are consistencies on the mismatch side defensively for the Heat. Then you go and you talk about the Heat weren't able to knock down any shots. Despite them hitting 33% of those shots, they still went 13 of 39, and they shot 40% from the field, almost having 100 shot attempts, but only making 39 of those shots. I'm looking at a couple of players specifically, players that seemed to carry the Heat throughout this playoff run, and I'm looking at Max Strus and Caleb Martin. Max Strus was 0 of 10. Caleb Martin was 1 of 7. That is completely unacceptable. And the fact that Tyler Hero is looming in the background, trying to get healthy for Game 2, maybe more so for Game 3, I think they're going to have to rely on him a lot sooner if those 2 individuals do not find a way to turn around. Duncan Robinson was also 1 of 6, 1 of 5 from the three-point line, another three-point specialist that was doing a lot of good things for them throughout this playoff run, and they were just ineffective. But one of my biggest points outside of just shooting inefficiencies, Miami Heat relied upon jump shots. They only had 2 free throw attempts. There is absolutely no reason if you're going to run a smaller lineup why you weren't attacking the paint. Yes, Denver was able to block some shots, alter some shots, make life difficult for Jimmy Butler whenever he drove into the paint. But you have to find a way to be aggressive and get to the free throw line. 2 free throw attempts in the NBA Finals is not going to get it done, especially when you are missing outside perimeter jump shots, considering that's all you did the entire game. Defensively, they did make some adjustments, but Nikola Jokic, again, he's a walking triple-double. He's going to get his looks. He's going to get his shots. Aaron Gordon had 14 in the first quarter. Afterwards, he was pretty much relatively ineffective. He only ended up with 16. Michael Porter Jr. was 2 of 11 from the three-point line. Jamal Murray had himself kind of an off night from behind the arc, but still ended up with 26. So there is room for improvement on Miami. But again, like I said, Denver also missed shots. So if we're going to talk about Miami having to hit theirs and get to the free throw line, if Denver hits some of those timely shots that they had taken and missed, this game may be even worse off than we originally anticipated. Miami cannot wait till the fourth quarter to make those adjustments. They changed into a zone to try to combat the interior offense of the Denver Nuggets, and it did work since the fourth quarter started on an 11-0 run led by Kyle Lowry, and they cut that deficit from 24 to 13. But afterwards, they found a way to adjust. Nikola Jokic kind of took the ball at the center of the key, found the open man, and Denver continued to pad that lead. Overall, I'm looking for Miami to do 2 things. They got to knock down open shots, and they have to attack the paint. Otherwise, this series potentially could end up in either a sweep or be done in 5.
I think for me, there's one aspect that I'll focus on because you pretty much hit some of the main points I was thinking. But one in particular for me is their transition defense. Because early in this game, talking about Game 1 specifically, was in that first quarter, Aaron Gordon killed Miami in the paint. And he would simply just drive into the lane or just post up and be able to effectively win those one-on-one battles. And one of the things that Miami's going to have to work on going into Game 2 is not get caught in transition where, unfortunately for them, they were getting mismatches where Denver was taking advantage of it and getting easy baskets because of that. And, you could look at the transition aspect after Miami would miss a shot that you got to get back in time to guard the players one-on-one defensively, or if you're setting up a zone defense, you still have to get back in time and beat the transition against you. But also another thing that I may just throw into the equation here is they got to find a way to be able to slow down Denver's effectiveness especially in the paint. Because, Kev, we could look back at this game one for Denver. Denver shot 50% from the field. And a good chunk of those shots came right at the rim. So to me, one of the things that Miami's going to have to try to adjust to in game two is they're going to have to bring, I would just say overall, more defensive intensity in being able to limit those lanes that Denver really kind of exposed in game one, especially early on. Just because when you look at somebody like Aaron Gordon take over the first quarter for Denver, and you look at someone like Nikola Jokic, where he doesn't really even have to be a focal piece of the scoring aspect with Denver specifically, there's definitely going to be a concern with that. Now, as the game went along, they were able to limit Aaron Gordon's effectiveness as the game went on compared to the first quarter, but it still left some opportunities for some other guys to take advantage of some open shots. And really, that's where I think that Denver started kind of relying more on their 3-point shots. And you could even look back at this game one in particular. Denver was not really that strong behind the 3-point line. And maybe you give a little bit of credit to Miami's defense being able to get back in time, force some contested shots. But you can still look back at this game, and Denver had some open 3-point shots that they just flat out missed. They knocked down a couple more shots. This could be a 20-point loss for Miami. But, looking at this from an overall perspective, I think if Miami is looking back at game one, this is a game that they could have potentially won had they just got off to a better start. And you throw in a little bit more of efficiency behind the 3-point line, the entire course of this game is flipped on its head as far as I see it. Because I don't think we're going to see in game two Max Strus go 0 of 10. We're not going to see Duncan Robinson go 1 of 7 from the field, only hit 1 3-point shot. The same goes with Caleb Martin. Caleb Martin has been one of the unsung heroes when it comes to Miami throughout this entire playoff run. And he was relatively a no-show. Gabe Vincent, he played pretty well. And I think when it comes to those players specifically, they're going to have to step up in these moments and knock down some critical shots if they want to make this series competitive. Overall, to me, Miami still has a pretty big uphill battle going into game two just because Denver's been amazing at home in the playoffs. They haven't lost a game at home yet. Part of it could be the altitude. Part of it, maybe Denver had a week and a half of rest going into this game one, and maybe they were the fresher team and they caught Miami in a 7-game series back in the Eastern Conference Finals, and maybe Miami just didn't have their feet underneath them or had their legs underneath them, just based off the fact that they only had really 2.5 days to recover from the Eastern Conference Finals, and you're playing at 5,000 plus feet. So overall, these adjustments Miami definitely needs to make game two more competitive. I'd say they have an outside shot to win game two in my mind if they make these adjustments. It's still going to be an uphill battle as far as I see it, but when it comes to Miami this year, you can never count them out. They barely made it into the playoffs this year as it is. It has not stopped them. They've gotten to this point simply just based off the fact that it's been a team effort. Really just this whole unit has been so cohesive throughout this playoff run. And they're going to have to make sure that these guys step up and knock down some critical shots moving forward. But overall, Miami has the pieces to do it. They just have to go out there and execute. And it's as simple as that.